Hey guys, Ryan Earnhardt here from CreativeSoundLab.tv. Well, I was just messing around with this mix today, and I kind of had a moment where my ears were tired, and I don't know, it just sounded like the mix was running away from me. So I want to talk about kind of my process, just kind of let you watch as I bury myself out of this hole here. You have a moment where you've overmixed something, overcompressed it. You have to kind of back up a little bit, give the mix a little more room to breathe. I don't know. It just sounds, it sounds a bit crushed. I exaggerated a little bit, but yeah, I'm just going to show you basically how to save Runaway Mix. So let's get started. So this is a song called "Ladder to the Sun" by Hustle Souls, and by the way, if you want to ever come here and record, work with me, I pick one band a month. So, yeah, hit me up on email, Ryan at creativesoundlab.tv. One band a month, no cost to the band. I sponsor the session for the right to use what we record in a tutorial video about mixing. So the band gets to have a free recording, go on and use their own mixer if they want, and publish the recording. It's a way that I can support music and also support education on how to create great music. So I think it's a win-win. Let me know via the email address, Ryan at creativesoundlab.tv, if you want to be a part of that. So, yeah, this song, man, we've 6 songs. We got 6 songs in a day, okay? I'm actually building out a masterclass right now for my membership site that is called The Lab. And it's just called How to Make a Fast EP and get just a ton done very, very quickly in the studio. Everything that you can do to amplify your efforts. So, tracking instruments together, for example, overdubbing only certain things, right? And you can really get a lot done. Gosh, instead of a day, it takes maybe like 2 hours, right? For the same amount of work. So yeah, great way to work. We worked super fast. I also cover like mixing techniques that I'm able to amplify the production value, such as stealing vocal parts from other takes, laying them in the chorus, things like that. It's a really cool masterclass. You can check it out in the membership site called The Lab by Creative Sound Lab. So this is a killer song, but it's a bit of a mess right now. I'll just hit play.
Oh, what a day. Oh, what a day. Oh, I believe this world is breaking. And it seems if I could build a ladder and climb it to the sun, honey knows I'm not coming home. To be on the hilltops when no one's worried. I wanna go. There's $20 bills on the treetops and lakes of whiskey. I wanna
go. Okay, so that's kind of the gist of the song here. Okay, it's just nuts. I haven't even edited the drums or tighten them up a little bit. It probably needs a little bit of that. I've been experimenting with more and more editing. And as you know, I'm kind of old school. I really try to keep things natural. There are limits, right? Like a current production sounds a lot more current. It's almost expected to be played to a click. There's expectations that are there. I think in modern music, that it almost sounds a little odd to pull off now. Like, Neil Young is great, but if you were to just do any band without that known name of, okay, that's his style, then it just seems like, well, what's the deal? Like, did they not have time to edit this or something? So if you're Neil Young, you can get away with it. And if you're really true to that sound, you can do it. You have to get the performance right. But But yeah, I think this could use just a touch of editing, just to tighten it up. And that's their sound too. They embrace, the sound of a kind of a modern soul record. So it's totally within the realm, totally within the boundaries of what's okay for this group. So let's see about the overmixing bit, because I'm supposed to like know all the right answers, right? Like I'm making videos, but I don't know all the right answers. I mean, I'm making this as kind of a journey, and you guys can come along, and I mean, hopefully you can teach me a thing or two. So I'm almost at a point where I don't know exactly what next to do with this song. And it's like, okay, maybe I should just take a break, come back in a few days. But I know that it's just overmixed at this point. There's too much compression. So let's go check out that drum bus compressor here. Where are you at? There it is. So this is the 5020. Yep, 5020.
I believe this world is breaking and it seems if I could build. Well, I heard there was a place beyond the hilltops where no one's worried. I wanna go. There's $20 bills on the treetops and lakes of whiskey. I wanna go. Well, I heard there was a place where no one's worried and no one's hungry.
So, I could try to reduce the amount of compression, right? Like I could, kind of my no-touch approach, I could reduce the amount that I'm sending to it and not have to mess with the threshold on the compressor. Or I could maybe do like a wet-dry kind of mix. That's another great way of actually dealing with this issue. It's almost like an insurance policy where you're not sure if you're doing too much, so you could maybe do like 50%, or if you're really unsure, like maybe 20% or something. So that's definitely too much. It just sounds hammered, absolutely hammered, and not necessarily in a good way. So I'm going to kind of dial it back quite a bit.
Well, I heard there was a place beyond the hilltops where no one's worried. I wanna go. There's $20 bills on the treetops and lakes of whiskey.
And I mean, we're dialing it way, way back. We could probably have a little fun with this and kind of push it.
I wanna go. Well, I heard there was a place where no one's worried and no one's hungry. I wanna go. There's berries on the vine and lakes of honey and love of climbing. I wanna go. Oh, what a day. I believe this world is breaking. Broken and it seems if I could build a ladder, climb to the sun. Honey knows I'm not coming home.
So that's kind of the first step, is find where you're over compressing. The other thing that I'm seeing is the stereo bus compressor, which is the next unit down, and the outboard there. It's getting a little bit hammered. The release time is a little fast, I think.
Well, I heard there was a place beyond the hilltops where no one's worried.
So that's already a lot better, you know? I mean, we have it so that the release time isn't too fast. You know, I'd like a fast release, but there's a point where it pulls up all the noise, and it's not like the whole mix needs that room mic crushed sound, right? So slow down the release on different layers of compression that you have going on. So that definitely makes a difference. I'm kind of curious though on different ratios on this one. You know, I want to see because the 1.5 to 1, like that's a very gentle compression. And a lot of times I'll use a 3 to 1 or 5 or 6 to 1 perhaps. So I want to experiment. And what's interesting is that this is one of those counterintuitive things about music production. The lower ratios have more of a sound to them. The higher ratios have less of a sound, and if used in a certain way, they're actually more transparent. Now, this does not apply to vocal compression, where you're slamming it, right? Like an LA2A on limit mode, you're going to be slamming that vocal, and it'll sound great. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about something like piano, acoustic guitar, you know, even actually like an 1176, it's just the way that like the 4 to 1 ratio on 1176 grips kind of the whole thing. You know, you kind of hear what's going on and it's kind of doing something all the time. Whereas a high ratio, it's going to be just getting the loud stuff. And so we're not going to really hear it. It'll make low end sound a little bit more smaller, but that could be a good thing because we're actually getting control of that low end. So yeah, a little bit of a counterintuitive thing. Higher ratios are more transparent sometimes. Lower ratios have more of a flavor. So it makes sense now, right? We have a low ratio, 1.5 to 1, and we have that fast release. So we're actually hearing a lot of the compression. It sounds like we're over compressing, and it's only 1.5 to 1. Okay? Let me kind of switch it up. Let me go to a higher ratio and see what we can get away with. We were at like what, 4 dB before, maybe 5 or 6 dB. So let me go to a higher ratio and let me see if I can kind of demonstrate how it can actually sound a little more transparent.
Well, I heard there was a place where no one's worried and no one's hungry. I wanna go. There's berries on the vine and lakes of honey and love upon it. I wanna go. Oh, what a day. I believe this world is breaking. Breaking at the seams. If I could build a ladder, climb into the sun, honey knows I'm not coming home.
Yeah, so once again, let me just kind of start over.
Honey knows I'm not coming home. Well, I heard there was a place beyond the hilltops where no one's worried. I wanna go. There's $20 bills on the treetops and lakes of whiskey.
So in some ways, the high ratio doesn't compress between the kick drum hits, and therefore it almost sounds like there's more space between those kick drum hits. You could almost say more punchy than a low ratio, which again is like just completely backwards because the low ratio should allow more sound through it, should allow more, I don't know, just more largeness, especially in that low end. But with something like this, we're in the limit and we're really just kissing the tops and allowing other things to go through. A lot of compressors, as you go higher and higher in ratio, you have a higher, no, you have a harder knee. So what that means is that you actually have a very set threshold that unless it meets that threshold, it really doesn't get compressed. A soft knee will actually start to compress a little bit before the threshold is actually met. So you have low volume sounds that start to get compressed and it slowly ramps up at a kind of a low ratio and gets higher and higher until it meets that set amount that you put. So even if you have it at 4-to-1, it'll actually start compressing below the threshold and like a 2-to-1, 3-to-1, and then finally it'll get to 4-to-1. So it actually does a lot of variation of the ratio, and this is all happening below that threshold. So it's another thing to really consider. It's like those low ratios will have a lot going on below the threshold, and maybe that's part of the reason why we can hear it a lot more. Now, again, like this compressor that I'm talking into right now, this is a soft knee compressor. It's a DBX 163A. And I think this sounds great, right? It's because it's so gentle. No matter what, it just kind of compresses a little at a time. There's no ratio adjustment on it. It just kind of does its thing. I think it eventually reaches a limit mode if you push it super hard, but soft knee compressors can actually be very, very gentle and very kind of cover a large range. But you see here, it's very audible. So that's one way that we can avoid kind of an overmixed sound is, I don't know, it's again counterintuitive, but going for a little bit higher ratio, maybe just one step higher, and therefore we're not compressing and using a soft knee and, just doing this slight compression on all the crap in between the drum hits. Okay, one more time and then we'll move on to something else. Yeah, so we can hear that the kick drum has more low end when we go to that low ratio. It's allowing some of that through. But it's almost like this sustained kind of effect in the middle. And, that's the kind of thing where that might work great if you're doing parallel compression. But for this, I'm 100% wet. I'm not doing parallel compression. I want it to sound good as is. So I'm going to go for maybe I'm going to go for my tried and true 3-to-1 on the successor, and maybe down the settings before moving on. I think the attack needs to be one step higher. What a day. I believe this world is breaking. Breaking out of seams. If I could build a ladder, climb into the sun, honey knows I'm not coming home. I'm actually going to go to the 4-to-1 for that. That sounds good, okay? And I'm listening to that effect of controlling the low end, but also not getting too much of that sustainy sound of that overcompressed overhead kind of thing, overcompressed drum room kind of thing. That's the thing I'm listening for that makes it sound a little bit just too overcompressed, too overmixed. Okay, so let's see what else we can do to this track to help it along. I've done too much of this track. I'm trying to save the mix here. It's kind of a runaway mix let's see what else I can dial back. So I actually have the overheads going into the Krim compressor, and that's the one at the very top there. Doesn't seem to be that bad, you know? I mean, it's actually just kind of hitting a little bit. So I don't have a problem with that necessarily. But yeah, one thing I wanted to show you is some of my other compression that I have going on here. So I have the kick in, kick out, and then that goes to a bus channel that gets them both together. And then after that, I have a kind of a series of DBX 903s. And so on the very left there is the kick. Then number 2 is snare. Number 3, I believe, is bass. So that's another thing I could try, is maybe a little bit lower ratio on the kick there. That's on the very left, the blue knob. So maybe I can try a little bit of that.
Well, I heard there was a place where no one's worried and no one's hungry. I wanna go. There's berries on the vine and lakes of honey and love are climbing. I wanna go. Oh, what a day. I believe this world is breaking. Breaking out of seams. If I could build a ladder, climb into the sun, honey knows I'm not coming home.
And one thing I realized is that, you know, I was mixing remotely, and for whatever reason, my number 2 compressor wasn't working, so I just switched to like the number 5 or 6 compressor. That's actually kind of a high ratio, so I could try maybe a little bit lower ratio on that for that snare, because it seems like the snare is maybe a little bit too squashed. So what's interesting here is that my instincts were like, okay, it sounds a little overmixed. On the bus compressors, maybe I can go higher ratio. But over here, on the individual source level compressors, maybe I can go lower ratios, right? It's going to be a layered thing. So it's going to hit, you know, this is like the first step. It's going to hit the drum bus. It's going to hit stereo bus. So yeah, that was kind of my first instinct, is like, well, maybe I can go a little bit lower ratio. Don't do too much too early. The snare has basically a limiter on it. So I want to try maybe a lower ratio.
Well, I heard there was a place beyond the hilltops where no one's worried. I wanna go. There's $20 bills on the treetops and lakes of whiskey. I wanna go.
Yeah, yeah. So, that helps because we get some fullness of that snare. As soon as I went to that low ratio, I got some of that fullness back. If I went to a higher ratio with the blue knob, I got more snap. So it's a little bit of a trade-off. A high ratio, and this goes for a lot of different compressors, is like the higher ratios sound a little bit different on that attack than they do at like a low ratio. So it kind of changes how much it bites and grabs and really shapes the transient. So I dig that. As you saw, I had to lower the threshold when I lowered the ratio. That way it was doing about the same amount of work. I basically just I don't even know what it is, 6, 7, 8 dB, 10 dB of compression. On these 903s, I just kind of go for like halfway down. So, I want to get some lights, kind of flashing. Not because they look cool, but because I want the compressor to do some work. So yeah, that sounds good. Let's keep going. So, kind of the obvious thing that is making this mix sound bad, and it's kind of a psychological thing where something's not right, you just can't tell what it is. And sometimes it's like your ear is getting used to like the organ that's like blaring loud, and it takes you a second to kind of realize, oh, that organ's been there the whole time, that it needs to come down. It's almost like your ear's getting used to reverb, and after a while you forget that it's there, and you have to kind of like make sure you're still hearing it, right? So for this, I've made these adjustments, right? Everything takes a reaction. I make a change here, I have to react to the mix and change things. But here it's like the vocal, it's not the same, it's got to come up. So that's kind of the next step.
Well, I heard there was a place beyond the hilltops where no one's worried. I wanna go. There's $20 bills on the treetops and lakes of whiskey. I wanna go.
Yeah, and that didn't sound half bad. I actually have it going through the 902 and an Aphex. What is that called? Expressor? Yeah, an Aphex Expressor. So this isn't a bad vocal chain. I mean, I actually kind of think of these expressors as almost like a poor man's distressor. They sound really good. Kind of fast, not as adaptable, but here's a vocal chain.
Well, I heard there was a place where no one's worried and no one's hungry. I wanna go. There's berries on the vine and lakes of honey and love of planet. I wanna go. Oh, what a day. I believe this world is breaking. Looking at it seems if I could build a ladder, climb it to the sun. Honey knows I'm not coming home.
Let me just work on that de-essing there.
Well, I heard there was a place beyond the hilltops when no one's worried. I wanna go. There's $20 bills on the treetops and lakes of whiskey. I wanna go. Woo.
Yeah, so really, really aggressive.
Well, I heard there was a place where no.
Yeah, so it really just lets me know that it's working. Sometimes I just have to crank the gear to see. Okay, is this thing even on?
No one's worried and no one's hungry. I wanna go. There's berries on the vine and lakes of honey and love aplenty. I wanna go. Oh, what a day. I believe this world is breaking at the seams. If I could build a ladder, climb it to the sun, honey knows I'm not coming home.
Yeah, okay, cool. So, yeah, that doesn't sound half bad.
Well, I heard there was a place beyond the hilltops where no one's worried. I wanna go. There's $20 bills on the treetops and lakes of whiskey. I wanna go. Well, I heard there was a place where no one's worried and no one's hungry. I wanna go. There's berries on the vine and lakes of honey and love aplenty. I wanna go. Oh, what a day. I believe this world is breaking at the seams. If I could build a ladder, climb it to the sun, honey knows I'm not coming home. Hungry, I wanna go. There's berries on the vine and lakes of honey and love aplenty. I wanna go. Oh, what a day. Oh, what a day. I believe. Breaking out of seams. Build a ladder, climb it to the sun, honey knows I'm not coming home. Plenty, I wanna go. Oh, what a day. I believe this world is breaking at the seams. If I could build a ladder, climb it to the sun, honey knows I'm not coming home.
Yeah, so that's a little bit of what's going on in the other parts of the song, the shout vocals and stuff. Yeah, so I think this mix is way better off than what we started. We dialed some stuff back. We used kind of a wet dry mix on the drum compressor. We actually increased the ratio on the master stereo bus, and then we decreased the ratio on some of the source compressors like kick, snare especially, and got some fullness back. Then we made some basic adjustments. Now that things were kind of messed with, we made some adjustments to the balances, pulled down the kick, pulled up the vocal, and man, we got a pretty decent sounding mix. Of course, that's not my best work by any means, but hey, this is way better off than what we started, which was a runaway mix that was overmixed and really sounded like I was kind of mixing on really tired ears. So, yeah, I had fun making this. Let me know what you think. Be talking to you soon.